The shir today is going to be about whether la'asad lavai there are going to be avyonim, poor people. So la'asad lavai, when Moshiach comes and cholam adanim mitzuyin ka'afar, all delicacies will be plentiful like the dust of the earth, which is the famous expression that the Rambam says, which I'll read soon more of the Rambam inside. So if that's the case, it seems like that after Moshiach comes, there'll be no mitzvah of tzedakah. There'll be no possibility to fulfill the mitzvah of tzedakah. Everybody will have plentiful of whatever they need, and there'll be no poor people in the world. Is that a correct statement? That la'asad laveh, there'll be no more poor people in the world, or at least no more poor people amongst the Yidden. Maybe there'll be poor people amongst Goyim. That's a separate discussion. Where exactly Goyim will be la'asad laveh, what their position will be, so on. But we're talking now amongst Yidden. So there is the very well-known statement of the Gemara that says, Shmuel's statement in the Gemara, when Shmuel says, Ein bein olam hazeh li'mois HaMashiach elo shibud malchias bulvad. There's no difference in the nature of the world between our times now and when Mashiach comes, other than the fact that shibud, the fact that we're subjugated and persecuted by any government in the world, that will disappear when Mashiach comes. But otherwise, the nature of the world will remain the same. And Shmuel brings as a proof for his statement a pasuk that it says, Kilo yechtal evyoim b'kerev haaretz, that there won't be a time when poor people will be gone from the face of the earth. There'll always be poor people that you'll have to help them. Which means that even la'asad lavai, this is his proof that even after Mashiach comes, lo yachtal evyon, there'll be poor people. So seemingly, there will be poor people la'asad lavai. Okay? But then you have, like I mentioned before, the famous Rambam. What does the Rambam say in the very last halacha of the Rambam? Ba'oisei azman, lo yisham, lo rov, v'lo mulchama, v'lo kinna, v'tachros. There'll be no hunger, no war, no jealousy, no competition. Shatevetiu mishpas harbe. The good will be there in an abundance. V'chol hamadanim, all delicacies, mitzuyin kafra, will be found like the dust of the earth. The Rambam seems to imply that everybody will have whatever they need in abundance. There'll be no poor people. So what's going on over here? This is a question that the Mefarshim of the Rambam speak about. Because the Rambam himself, earlier on, takes the view of Shmuel. Right? In the beginning of the Perek, the Rambam here says, Ein bein olam hazeh li'yemos HaMashiach al ya'al al aleiv shebi'yemos HaMashiach yivtal davar mimin hagish alaylam. Do not think that when Mashiach comes, there'll be a change in the minig of the world, in the way the world is running, or yishum chidush b'maaseh bereishis, or there'll be any other chiddush, any other change in Ma'aseh Bereishis. That's not the case. And the Rambam goes on to explain how all the different prophecies where it talks about a change in nature, they're all metaphors for something else, but not an actual change in the nature. But right here, the Rambam seems to be saying that la'asad lavai, no hunger, no famine, no war, no jealousy, abundant. That's pretty supernatural. Pretty supernatural. That's natural.
I think that's the ultimate natural.
That's the way it should be. Now it's tight.
Okay.
But don't say ein bein though.
Okay, well, but the point you're saying has validity too. We'll get back to it soon. So let's start with this. First, there's the Rambam himself in another place, in the Pirush HaMishnayos. We can eigentlich nicht sehen afille. The Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayos, in his Akdama to Perek Chelik in Masechta Sanhedrin, where the Gemara, of course, talks about many different things about what's going to happen in la'asad lavai. So the Rambam there has an introduction, and amongst the things that the Rambam writes there, I wrote down part of the lashon that the Rambam says. That the Rambam says as follows: Yiyu la'asad lavai, yiyu ashirim ve'evyonim. There will be rich people, there will be poor people, gibayrim v'chalashim, strong people, weak people, even la'asad lavai. Keneget zulasam. The Rambam then adds and qualifies, looking relatively Relatively, there'll be people that will be rich and poor, strong or weak. Aval ba'isam ayamim, in those days, yenekel ma'od al bnei adam limtzeh michyasam. It'll be very easy for people to find their food, their sustenance, their panasa. Ad sheba'amal ma'at sheyamil adam. Just a little bit of toil, a little bit of work that a person will work. Yagia l'tayalas gadayla. He will make a tremendous income. Much more than the way it is bisman hazeh. Till here is the quote from the Rambam. The Rambam continues there. I didn't write down the whole lashon, but the Rambam there explains the famous Gemara in Ksubas that says that la'asad lavai, it's going to grow, Eretz Yisrael is going to grow gluskoi, seklei milas, it's going to grow beautiful food and the clothing or whatever, everything will be growing on the trees. So the Rambam over there says that it's all a mashal. Just like when a person finds something much more than he expects, so it's like an expression. The person says, he found it, it was like prepared for me, it was like ready for me, and I didn't have to work hard for it. So this expression of the Gemara does not mean literally that it's going to grow on the tree, clothing or whatever, food, prepared food to eat, but it's going to be so accessible and so easy, the work that you'll have to invest will be so minimal, ki'ilu yumamish, picking up clothing off a tree. That's the way the Rambam teaches that Gemara. So, some of Farshim want to say that when you read the Rambam here, Boise Azman, when the Rambam says there'll be no war, no famine, no kinna, and there'll be at Tova Mushpas Harbe, there'll be so much abundance of good available, you're supposed to interpret the Rambam here the same way. The Rambam is not telling you in his words that there'll be some kind of miraculous event where the Eibishter will just pour gold and silver out for everybody to take and have as much as he wants. The Rambam doesn't never. When the Rambam says "Hatoiva tiyu mishpas harba," that could mean, like the Rambam says in Pirush HaMishnayos, that people will have to invest minimal work, and the result will be that they'll have a lot of money from that minimal work. You know, there's the famous story in the Gemara regarding Rab Shimon ben Yochai that took his students down to a bika, to a valley. There was one student that left them and became very rich, and all of the students wanted to have the same riches, and they stayed to learn. So Rab Shimon ben Yochai took them down to a valley, and he said, "Bika, smali din rizal, fill up with all the gold coins," and it got full of gold coins. And then he told them, "If you're going to take from here, you're taking from your portion l'asad lavai," and then that all disappeared and nobody took anything. You look in that Gemara, and then you look at the Rambam, "Hatoy v'tiyu mishpas harba," it would seem like what the Rambam is saying, all those gold coins that fill that valley, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be gold all over the streets, and there's going to be abundance of good where a person will have, just pick it up from the floor, and it'll be so there'll be no poor people. It'll be mamish b'derech nes kipshutai. But when you take a look in the Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayos, so the Rambam says no, people are still going to have to work for a living, but not at all in the same way like today. People will not have to schwitz in the same way and not have to work hard in the same way. It'll be much easier, b'nekel, the Rambam says. Still, relatively, the Rambam says, relatively there'll be rich and poor people. The Rambam makes it clear, keneged zulasim, which means the poor people of then will not be the same poor people of today. There'll be other people that will be so rich that relative to them, other people will be considered to be poor. But everybody, apparently everybody will have what he needs, l'asad lavai. Only question is, how rich are you going to be? Okay, so which means then, that even l'asad lavai, there is a concept of poor people. Not exactly like today, but there still is a concept of the existence of poor people.
And so we're finding today, people find it much easier to get rich, and it's a shame. Many people find it much easier compared to 50, 100 years ago. And also the population of poor people, which was 50 years ago.
When people were mamish suffering from hunger and so on.
It's a good muscle. These days is a good muscle.
Correct. That
what
you consider rich and poor today is very different what you consider rich and poor 100 years ago.
Like it says in Chumash today, we have Yaakov, we have the Lachem Lachal Bagavoboish, who these days almost nobody doesn't have that. That's
okay, and there's but
no,
there are people that are struggling even with basic lechem lachal or bagad ilbosh.
But there are but there are places in about saying that there are third of them in America. I'm not saying that.
Correct. Yeah. So and then la'asad lavai, it'll be even more. Beinarich more. Whatever the golden in Medina.
The lowest standard is
right, is going to be exactly the lowest standard of the poor person will be even higher. but there still will relatively be poor and rich people.
You shouldn't call them Evian, because the Rebbe explains Evian is...
Tov l'chol dava, correct. So it's not mamish of Yainim.
Yeah.
Not mamish of Yainim, correct. And also,
It doesn't say Aniyim, it says Evian.
you're right. Yeah, the Rambam does use the term Ashirim
But the
ve'Yainim.
pasuk uses Evgen, kilo yechtal Evgen.
Correct. You're right about that.
And down the pasuk, Efes kiloye becha Evian.
So there's a Rashi that it says, if Eisen Etzayin Shal Mokim.
Exactly.
Right. No, we spoke about that last week. I don't know if you were here. That even lost love, you loved after gets Eisen Etzayin Shal Mokim. 2 weeks ago, I gave a whole share about that. Okay. But it still also doesn't answer the question, how about tzedakah? Even if it's true that Asad Lavi, there will be poor and rich people, but even the poor people will have whatever they need. They'll be called poor because they're not as rich as the mega rich people, but they're still going to have whatever they need. So is there going to be any opportunity to give tzedakah?
I'm sure there will be.
Huh?
I'm sure there will be.
Someone wants something
Okay, so yes, correct. So there's other ifanim how to give tzedakah besides actually giving someone money. Correct. Okay, so we'll get back to that in a moment. So first of all, let me say that there's a few places in the Rebbe's Sichis, more than one place, Chelik Chav Zayin, and a few different Mekaydes where the Rebbe teaches the Rambam this way. When the Rambam here says Hatoivetiu mishpas harbe v'chol hamadana mitzuyin ka'ofar, even though it sounds like abundance and so on, but the Rambam does not have to mean b'derech nes, a shinim and hagish shalaylam, miracles, because this is the last halacha of the very same Perek where the Rambam himself started off saying that there won't be a shinim and hagish shalaylam. So therefore, the pshat here in the Rambam is like it says in the Pirush HaMishnayos, as I mentioned before, that people will have it easier, people will be richer, but it'll still all be al pi derech hateva. However, there are in the later years the hadronim that the Rebbe said on the Rambam, especially in 2 years of Tafshin and Aleph and Tafshin and Beis. So it was the Sikh of Lech Lecha Tafshin and Aleph, which that's when the Siyam Rambam then was, and then the Tafshin and Beis, the Siyam was in Simchas Torah, Tafshin and Beis. So the Sichas that the Rebbe said in the later years, so the Rebbe said a different shot in the Rambam. And the Rebbe said that here, when the Rambam says, Shat Toiviti Mishpas Harbe, V'chol Hamadana Mitzuyin Ka'ofar, the pshat in the Rambam is, Kipshutai, as the words sort of sound, that it'll be B'derech Nes. Hatoivim Mishpas Harbe, and Madanim Mitzuyin Ka'ofar. The literal taich of Madanim Mitzuyin Ka'ofar, delicacies found like the dust of the earth. If you want to taich it literally, just like this dust in the earth, there will be delicacies, or whatever Madanim means. Whether Madanim means delicacies in money, or in food, or in clothing, but Madanim Mitzuyin Ka'ofar and the literal taich does sound like that it's something B'derech Nes. So the Rebbe taiched that the Rambam here is talking about a nes. The Rambam himself before said lo yishinim in hagish alaylam. So there's the famous shitta of the Rebbe that the Rebbe spoke about on many occasions, that there's going to be 2 tkufas lasad lavai, and this is even before you get to the tkuf of Tchias HaMesim. Even before you get to the tkuf of Tchias HaMesim and Olam Haba, or the Elef HaShvi, which is already a whole different tkufa. Even in the initial stage of Yemais HaMashiach, there are 2 tkufas. There is the Tkuf of Yemais HaMashiach, when Mashiach comes, builds the Beis HaMikdash, the Yidden bring Karbanis, and all the Taryag mitzvahs come back, and there's Melech HaMashiach, there's a Melech, and all Yidden are living in Eretz Yisrael, and all the Mishmit and Yovel and everything. That's one Tkufa where things will be al pi derech hateva. Then there's a later Tkufa in Yemais HaMashiach, when the Yidden will be elevated, the world will be elevated, and there'll be miracles performed. So the Rebbe says, even though the Rambam in Sefer Hayad, since he's a halacha sefer, only focuses and says the details that are negeya halacha lamaisa, to know how to identify Mashiach and what the world will be like when Mashiach comes. He only mentions things the way they are in their natural order. That's al pi halacha. The second kufa, where there will be shinim and agash alaylam, which are all mavur in many medrash chazal and in gemaras in various places, in ksubis and shabbos and so on. The Rambam does not bring it in the Sefer Hayad in the Rambam, because that's not negei halacha. However, the Rebbe said in the last halacha of the Rambam, when he writes ba'oy soyazman, he's hinting, at least hinting, maybe even a little bit more than a hint, to this second kufa. That the second kufa will be Toivim Mishpas Harbe, Cholam Adana Mitzuyin Ka'afar, that then There'll be absolutely no poor people at all because it'll be Tov Mishpas Harba B'derech Nes. Everybody will have the abundance of whatever they want endlessly, like the dust on the earth. That's how the Rebbe teaches the Rambam, like I said, in the later Sichos. Yeah, and again, the Pashtus, the reason why the Rebbe teaches this way is because this is more the Pirush HaPashut of the words of the Rambam. Cholam Adanim Mitzuyin Ka'afar lends itself more. If you want to teach literal, you're teaching with a child, and you tell them Madana Mitzuyin Ka'afar, what do they think of? Like they tell them, there'll be danishes and donuts on the trees, and there'll be guluskais, like I mentioned before. Yeah, correct. So Madana Mitzuyin Ka'afar sounds like that. That'll be B'derech Nes, and that's how the Rebbe teaches the Rambam.
Today, you go into a kosher supermarket. 50 years ago, there was 10, 20 products in the kosher supermarket. Today, you have 10,000 products.
So we have already a me'ain of Yemais HaMashiach. Kepshute mamish, huh?
And for $20, you could buy all types of madanim today. $20, any type of
What's
madanim
that?
that you want.
What's about that?
Whatever, all types of delicacies and things that you want for $20. You're going to 10,000 products. They don't even have place on the shelves in the big supermarkets to put in the new products that are coming out. So
Yeah. Okay. So it's mamish ha'achanati Yemais HaMashiach. Okay, but here there's another detail to look at this, and that is, let's look for a second when we get to the source of where the whole thing of a Asher and a Ani comes from. There are two details to the source of the whole existence, B'chlal, of a poor man, a rich man. So let's first focus on what we mentioned before from the Pirush HaMishnayos. Where the Pirush HaMishnayos talks about the amount of work that a person has to invest to make money. And he distinguishes that today you have to work very hard. Asad Lavai, you'll have to work very little, B'neikol, and you'll make money much more than what you make today. So the whole source of this thing that a person has to work hard for his parnassa, where does this come from? What's the source of this? Chet Eitz Hadas. Chet Eitz Hadas. The klala of B'zeyas Apecha Toichal Lechem. That after the Chet Eitz Hadas, a person has to work hard for his parnassa. Before Chet Eitz Hadas, basically it grew, everything grew, and you didn't have to work hard for your parnassa b'chlal.
the Mishnah says there is an animal that has to work hard.
Correct. Right. The Mishnah at the end of Kedushin. Yes. Correct. Correct.
So why does the animal doesn't have to work?
The animal does not have to work for his parnassa, and a human being does, because a human being did not fulfill the Eibishter's mitzvah by Chet Eitz Hadas, and then even in the future when we were not totally misak in the Chet Eitz Hadas, so therefore you don't have to work so hard. If so, la'asad lavoi, when the Chet of Eitz Hadas will be corrected fully, so the world will return to its natural state of being, the way it was before Chet Eitz Hadas. That's the point that you mentioned before, right? So before Chet Eitz Hadas, so that's what the Rambam is talking about, that people...
It's going to be even higher. It has to be.
Correct, but at least
minimum,
as the way it was before Chet Eitz Hadas, that the world will be the way it was then. Yeah. And there is a pshat that the Rebbe brings in the Sikha from the Avodas HaKadosh. Avodas HaKadosh is one of the Mekubalim. And he writes that even though the Rambam's shitta is that there'll be no shinui b'minhagi shalaylam, and everything will remain al pi derech ha-teva, he says, but which teva is the Rambam referring to? The Rambam is referring to the teva before Chet Eitz Hadas. He's not referring to the teva of the world that we experience today. That's not the real nature of the world. When the world will be refined and brought back to its natural state of being, it'll be like before Chet Eitz Hadas. That's what the Rambam is referring to. So therefore he says, when the Rambam here says, this refers to when Moshiach comes and the world will be, the true nature of the world will be revealed, and that's what the Rambam is talking about in the Pirush HaMishnayos. Okay. So, that's the source of this inyan, from where this whole thing of Chet Eitz Hadas comes from, right? But the question, though, is this idea of Hatoivet Tiyu Mishpas Harba V'Chol Hamadan Metzuyin Ka'afar. Is this returning things to the way it is before Chet Eitz Hadas? In other words, as follows: there's three different options, three different possibilities. That is, there's when a person has to work hard. B'zeyas apecha toichal lechem. B'zeyas apecha doesn't just mean that a person has to work, but he has to schwitz With the sweat of your brow, you get bread. The person has to work hard, like it says over there by the Eitz Hadas, that after the Chet Eitz Hadas, after the Klala, thorns and weeds began growing in the fields amongst the tvua and the trees, and you have to work hard to weed it out and so on. Before then, there was no thorns and weeds, right? Then there's what a person has to work. You have to plant, you have to grind the wheat and whatever you have to do in order to be able to bake bread. So that's not l'cha'ira, something which is a klal of the Chet Eitz Hadas, but that's the regular amount of work without the zeyah, without the person schwitzing and haraving for the extra work that he has to do as a result of Chet Eitz Hadas. And then there's what the Rambam says, that ba'isam hayamim yenekul ma'oidal b'nei adam. It'll be very easy for a person to find his parnasa, and he'll invest very minimal, and he'll see a bracha in what he does much more than what he's investing. And then there's a situation where a person doesn't have to do anything, where everything is just available with him without lifting a finger. So there's various different levels to this. So even if you say that the world is going to return to the way it is before Chet Eitz Hadas, even before Chet Eitz Hadas, does it say anywhere that people had to work very minimal and that tiny little work brought them a tremendous hashpah? No. Before Chet Eitz Hadas, they didn't have that additional need to take out weeds and to schwitz and so on. They had to work normal. You had to plant and you had to charisha, zriya, and so on, but they still had to work. I believe so. No. Because after the Chet Eitz Hadas, it says kaitz v'dardar tatzmiach. So it's mashma that it's only the kaitz v'dardar tatzmiach, the thorns.
Also, Adamayim, meaning once Adam's around, then there should be work to be done, no?
Again, what does it say?
I forgot. It's something with Adam.
Right, they said la'avdal l'shamra, even before Chet Eitz Hadas, la'avdal l'shamra. In the simple pshat, he had to work even before, right? Okay, various levels, correct. Right. So I'm just trying to.
He had to go outside and pick it up.
Right. Also,
The Rosh had to walk a mile
right.
or whatever. You have to do something. It's very minimal.
I'm just trying to bring out that even if you want to say that the world is going to return to before Chet Eitz Hadas, the Chayre before Chet Eitz Hadas, they also had to work. The Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayos seems to be saying something even more, that minimal work will bring you a result of an income that's be'ein areich to the little work that you're doing.
Right.
And the Rambam in here in the Sefer, when it says Toivetiyu mishparas haba v'cholam adanim mitzuyin ka'ofa, certainly is mashma, then it's more than just returning to before Chet Eitz Hadas. So therefore it's mashma that it's more than just going back to the Chet Eitz Hadas. So this pshat that some of Farshim say that the Rambam means that it's going to go back to before Chet Eitz Hadas, l'chayre doesn't fit, not in the lashon of the Sefer Hayad, and not in the lashon of the Pirush HaMishnayos. So now, getting back to the question of tzedakah. So if lasad lavai, however you slice it, l'chayre, everybody will have what they need. Where is going to be the fulfillment of the mitzvah of tzedakah? So there's a sikh in Chelik Chav Dalet, look at the sikh is Chelik Chav Dalet, where the Rebbe says, Yeshloima shemikol mokim yiyeh gemilas chasadim. Shuhu gamla ashirim. Gemilas chasadim is also with rich people. When you invite someone in your home, and you give him a meal, he has enough of his own. He could go out and buy, and he can prepare for himself. But he's here, and you invite him in your home, and you give him, and you provide him. That's a gemilas chesed, even if he doesn't need it. And the Rebbe adds right away there in the Sikha, Loi mishum sheha asher yiyet tzarech legemilas chasadim, ki oz harehu ani b'yisashah. So then he's poor, and lasad lavi is not. People won't be poor. A person will always have the availability to get whatever he wants. Elamai, but you can still invite him. You can still do gemilas chasadim. You notice the famous story of the Chassidim of the Rebbe Marash, I think it is, that he spoke about, that Rebbe Marash spoke about the greatness of doing a gemilas chesed with another yid, and the Chassidim came back, and they would lend money to each other, just to do gemilas chasadim. Not that they needed it, but he gave him $5 and he gave him back $5, and they would lend money to each other. And when they came back to the Rebbe Marash, he says, "Mamash had geshaint," that they were shining because of the gemilas chesed that they were doing with each other. Right? So there's an idea of gemilas chesed even when a person is not in a matzav of need. That's the gemilas chesed of lasad lavai.